Knoxville, Tennessee is the spot to be this weekend for a premier SEC football showdown. The Georgia and Tennessee rivalry has been super one-sided of late. The Dogs have won 8 straight meetings against the Vols, each by at least 14 points. The numbers when they play in Knoxville, even more staggering. Georgia has won each of their past 4 visits to Knoxville by at least 24 points. Georgia is trying to start 3-0 yet again, and if they can, that would make it 11 straight consecutive seasons where they have gone 3-0. And over FBS for the past 50 years, that would put them right there at a tie with Alabama from 2004 to 2014. But look how tough it's been to play at Neyland Stadium lately. Since 2022, when you talk best home record, Tennessee right here on the graphic with Washington, Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and there's Tennessee at 21-1 with the only loss coming against Georgia in 2023 when the Dogs were the #1 team in the country and won by 28. Let's take this convo a step further and bring in Jordan Hill for Georgia's 24/7 Sports and Patrick Brown, who covers Tennessee also for 24/7. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. And Jordan, I want to start with you first and talk a little bit about Georgia because they haven't really been tested competition-wise to this point. And now you get Gunnar Stockton getting his first road start. It comes at Neyland. How well does he need to play in order for the Dogs to win?
I think he's going to be a big key on Saturday, and I think that, coming off of week 2, I think a lot of Georgia fans are anxious to see what Gunnar Stockton does. Georgia won 28-6 over Austin Peay in week 2, but it wasn't really the offensive showing most people were expecting. Gunnar Stockton really struggled to get the ball going downfield. He wound up with 234 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but the vertical passing game was lacking against an FCS opponent. Pro Football Focus had his average depth of target at 3.2 yards, and that's not going to cut it against Tennessee, especially with what this Tennessee defense is capable of. So Gunnar said after the game that they didn't play to the standard in week 2, and I think a lot of us are wondering if Georgia felt like they could hold back given the caliber of the opponent and given what awaited them in week 3 against Tennessee. So huge moment for Gunnar on Saturday. He has had a good bit of experience over these last 9 months going into the SEC title game, starting against Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, but this will be his first true road start, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to make plays down the field and keep the Georgia offense going in the right direction.
Yeah, pressure when we know that crowd will be rocking for sure. On the other side, the other QB, Joey Aguilar. And Patrick, I'll ask you this. 5 TDs, no interceptions to this point of the season for him. How can he get the best of a Kirby Smart defense?
Well, Zach, he would be the first Tennessee quarterback in a while to get the better of a Kirby Smart defense. Tennessee under Josh Heupel, he's in his 5th year in Knoxville. They've scored points on pretty much everyone except Georgia. They've not surpassed 17 points in the past 4 meetings, so Georgia has had their number. But Joey Aguilar coming over in the de facto trade, if we're still calling it that, with Nico Iamaleava in UCLA. He's done great so far through the first 2 games. Against Syracuse, he hit the long one over the top. That was a welcome sight. And against ETSU last week, he had a play where he scrambled out of the pocket and kind of improvised a couple times, but he had one over the top again that he just kind of heaved up and hoped his receiver got under it. So he's got a little bit of creativity. He's got a little bit of improvisational ability when he needs to. But as you mentioned, he's yet to throw an interception this season. That was a big question mark coming over from Appalachian State, where he started the past 2 seasons, threw 24 interceptions there, but has yet to really put the ball in harm's way. But that's going to get tested. Tennessee's wide receivers have really struggled in this matchup against Georgia. They've not won on the outside with their wide receivers. They've struggled to generate explosive plays. You look at last season's game in Athens, I think their longest pass play was 17 yards. So while they were able to move the ball a little bit, they weren't able to generate those explosive chunk plays that make things easier when you're going against a talented defense like Georgia that will blitz, that will pressure, that will bring different looks on 3rd down and make things really difficult for you. And the other thing Georgia's done against Tennessee is control the line of scrimmage with the run game. So Tennessee's got to be able to win at the line of scrimmage. They've got to be able to win outside on the perimeter as well and make some plays. Georgia's defense is going to play tight coverage. There's going to be tight passing windows for Aguilar. And Tennessee's wide receivers are young but talented. They've got to make some contested catches against those tight matchups.
Jordan, what's your feel for the way that Georgia's defense is playing, given the fact that the offense has been leaving some things to be desired?
I think through 2 games, they've passed every test on defense. I think this is a group that went into the year feeling really good about the talent on the defense. They just had a lot of inexperience. And you lose 3 first-round picks off of the 24 defense. There's going to need to be some people who step up. And again, understanding that the competition so far has been Marshall and Austin Peay, I think that they've done what's expected. I think the big thing that has stood out to me, again, understanding who the competition's been, defensive line. I think Georgia feels really good about the depth they have up front. And when I think about that 2022 defense, when Georgia went back to back, they did such a good job of rotating in defensive linemen, especially in big games and especially late in that season. I think they're in position to be able to do that again because they have a really talented starting front with Gabe Harris, with Christian Miller, with Jordan Hall. But some of the backups have really done a good job to date. Joseph Jonah Ajonye, Elijah Griffin, the 5-star freshman, has really impressed. Xavier McLeod, his second year in the program, he's done a really good job too. So looking at this defense, this is for sure their biggest test. And the areas that I'll be watching is really going to be the secondary and specifically strong safety. They've got KJ Bolden playing free safety. He's been phenomenal through 2 games, but they're still kind of getting settled at the other safety spot. Kyron Jones is a third-year player at Georgia. He kind of surprised us by getting the start in week 1. That's been a competition that's going on throughout the offseason. I think Tennessee's going to really test him and see if he's up for the challenge. And Kyron's a guy that's a very talented young defensive back, a guy that Georgia recruited. He was going to be a running back and go to NC State. They convinced him to leave his home state of North Carolina and come to Georgia. This is kind of a proving ground for him. Can he hold up on the back end of that secondary? And can he meet the moment against a very dangerous Tennessee offense?
Yeah, Patrick, we heard a little bit of talk about that Vol secondary, and that's certainly somewhere when we make the transition over to injuries. The Vols taking some hits there. What's that defense looking like with the injuries, and what type of update can you provide us?
Yeah, Tennessee's dealing with some multiple absences at both cornerback and defensive tackle. I'll start at cornerback. Ricky Gibson III hurt his shoulder, upper chest in the opener against Syracuse. He's going to be out for a while. And then all-SEC cornerback Jermon McCoy tore his ACL back in January while training back home. So they didn't have those guys last week. Gibson got hurt in the opener, and McCoy is yet to come back, although I still think Tennessee expects him to come back at some point this season. They've really not missed a beat there, though. They brought in Colton Hood, transfer from Colorado in the spring. He was one of the backups to Travis Hunter last season, played a lot as a redshirt freshman, actually began his career at Auburn. And at the other side, they plugged in a freshman in Ty Redmond, who's from the Atlanta area. And he was just a 3-star recruit, but he has fast-tracked his way onto the field. They both played really good tight man coverage. They've probably got about 7 or 8 pass breakups between them through 2 games. So they've played pretty well, but this is going to be, again, a big test going from Syracuse, which does have some good receivers in ETSU, to the athletes that Georgia has brought in on the outside. And then at defensive tackle, they haven't had David Hobbs the first 2 games of the season. He was a guy that a lot of people in the program kind of viewed as a breakout candidate. And then Jackson Moy is a senior starter who went down in the Syracuse game. Didn't play last week. I think it's very iffy if he's going to play this week. Last week they had Dominic Bailey, their starting defensive end. He's pretty big at 290 pounds, but they slid him inside at defensive tackle. They're pretty deep at defensive end, so they were able to just kind of roll with that rotation and play Bailey inside. But they're pretty young behind Bailey and Bryson Easton, who are 2 sixth-year seniors. So they're going to need some of those backups, some young guys. Freshman Ethan Utley's playing a lot. Nathan Robinson's a third-year sophomore that made some plays in the Syracuse game that hasn't played a whole lot. They've got Jamal Wallace in there, who's a big body, but a second-year junior college transfer. So they're going to need that group in particular, I think, to step up in this game because this is going to be a line of scrimmage game. They've got to be able to contain Georgia running the football. I think they've got to put this game in Gunnar Stockton's hands and probably more specifically his arm. They've got to get pressure on him. They've got to get him into third and long situations, but they can't let him scramble and move the chains with scrambles and extend plays outside the pocket. So Tennessee's going to need both those positions. They're a little short-handed potentially, and certainly at cornerback, but I think Tennessee likes who they have, and they've got those guys, and they need those guys to be able to step up in this one.
When you look at the injury situation for Georgia, we're really looking on the right side of the offensive line. Juan Gaston, who was the starting right guard in week 1, and also Ernest Green, the starting right tackle. Both got hurt in that game against Marshall. We're still kind of waiting to see what their availability will be. We talked to Kirby Smart after practice on Tuesday. He said both of those guys have participated in some individual drills at practice, not working with the team. He said they were moving around a little bit, but it seems like this is going to be a situation we're probably going to be following all the way up to game time. Now, when important. As we record this right now, I believe that Ernest Green, the right tackle, will wind up playing against Tennessee. I don't think we're going to see Juan Gaston, but again, there's a few days left to go and see how these guys work through the rest of this week. And to me, when we look at the keys to this game, I look at it all being on the Georgia offensive line. A lot of pressure on Gunnar Stockton, like we talked about earlier. But I think the offensive line's play will make or break Georgia's chances. You got to run the ball against this Tennessee front, which is easier said than done. Got to protect Gunnar Stockton, allow him to have those opportunities to make plays downfield. Whoever winds up starting on that right side of the line, they got to meet the moment, which is a lot easier said than done, playing in front of 100,000 plus in Neyland.
So, Patrick, as we get ready for the 55th meeting between these two teams, I now must ask you, who wins on Saturday?
Well, it seems like it's sort of been building up towards Tennessee's favor this week. I think the line has shifted several points. It's still Georgia's still favored, but now I think the line has kind of been cut in half. There's some metrics that are sort of shading a 50-50 toss-up game a little bit towards Tennessee. They're getting Georgia early. Georgia's not been tested, as George mentioned, just playing Austin Peay and Marshall. And Tennessee's at home, where they've played very well, as you guys highlighted at the start of the segment. But it just kind of feels like I've kind of got to see Tennessee do it. As I mentioned, they've struggled to score points and move the football. It's interesting. They've actually scored on their opening possession in each of the past 4 Georgia games, but still haven't been able to parlay that into more points and a win. So they've got to figure out this Kirby Smart defense. They've got to make plays on the outside. There's going to be some one-on-one matchups in this game, some downfield shots, some key third down moments where Tennessee's going to need their guys, Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, Chris Browse on the outside. Maybe they can work the tight ends in the game. They've got to go and make some of those key plays that they've not made. You look at last year's game was, Tennessee jumped out to a 10-0 lead in the first quarter in Athens. It was tied at halftime, and then in the second half, Georgia just made all the winning plays down the stretch, and that was the difference. I think Tennessee's sort of been they've had that game in the back of their minds throughout the offseason that they were close, and it's certainly sort of building like Tennessee is kind of setting up for Tennessee to maybe win this game, but Georgia's had their number, so I can't see Tennessee breaking the string. I think they've got a great chance at it, but I've kind of got to see them do it. I've got to see them score more than 17 points against Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs for me to believe that they can pull off a win against Georgia.
So what's your final score prediction then?
I would probably go something. I actually think they might get over 17 points, but it might not be enough. I think this will be a 4-quarter game. I'd probably go something like Georgia 24-20 or something like that.
Very similar to me. I've got Georgia winning 23-20. And the thing to me that I go back to, there's a lot of questions as we've hit on about Gunnar Stockton. But to me, I think this game is going to be determined by who can run the ball best. And my confidence in picking Georgia is because of Georgia's defense. I think that this is another elite group on defense, probably not quite to the caliber of 21-22, but I think a step forward from the defense we saw in 2024. And you look at Georgia's ability to stop Tennessee's ground game. The last few years, last 9 meetings, there's only been one time Tennessee rushed for over 3.8 yards per carry. That was 2023, and that number kind of got skewed a little bit. Jalen Wright had a 75-yard touchdown right off the jump, and that kind of made the numbers look a little different by the end of the game. But I think this is going to be a 60-minute fight. Can totally see Tennessee being able to defend the home turf, but I think with what Georgia's got on defense, the ability for that front seven to stop the run, put a lot of pressure on Joey Aguilar to throw the ball downfield and try to make some potentially dangerous plays. I think Gunnar Stockton's going to do enough in this game. I think the Georgia ground game is really going to get going, and that Georgia's going to win this thing 23-20.
So if it does stay close, like both of you are predicting, it will stop the streak that Georgia is trying to become the second team in the SEC to ever win 9 straight games by 14 or more against another SEC opponent. Jordan Hill, Patrick Brown, thank you so much as we get ready for that big old SEC matchup. And all things college football can be found over on the CBS Sports college football page. Tap into the gang and get all of the info like what we just gave you around the clock whenever you want it. You see that QR code, go ahead and scan it.